8:30 a.m. in the morning. I would ask that everyone please find their seats so we can start this meeting and conduct the business we need to do today. Thank you. We will start this morning with our chaplain prayer and pledges, and we have today our police chaplain, Lorenzo Hatch, here to lead us in prayer and in the pledges. Thank you.
Please bow your head. Gracious Heavenly Father, you remind us that we are the salt of the earth and that a little leaven works through the whole batch. Lord, grant wisdom and right judgment to our council and empower them to be leaven for our community, which inspires all of us to make our city better and more unified. Lord, we know how hard they work for our community, and we are ever grateful for the work they do. Bless them and their families. Lord, we also ask that you bless all of our city employees, especially those of our fire department and police department. Protect them from all harm. And lastly, kind and gracious Lord, please send some more beautiful rain to our community. We ask this in all things through your most sacred name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation. Honor the Texas flag.
pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state. This happens on a very rare occasion where we have no proclamations or recognitions today, so this is an unusual city council meeting. So we will now go into our public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Do I have anyone in the audience today who would like to come forward and offer public comment? Well, this is going to be a real unusual meeting today. Okay. Please come forward. Yes, you raised your hand. Well, just come to the microphone if you wouldn't mind, and you're going to tell me your name and tell me where you live, and then tell me what you would like to say today.
My name is Ann Helm. I live at 2626 Briargrove Lane. I wanted to just make a few comments about what I understand the council might be considering, and that is regarding not providing maintenance for the restrooms in Martin Luther King Park. Martin Luther King Park is a park for the children and the families together.
Let me just stop real quick. Because we do have a Martin Luther King thing on the agenda today, can she continue to speak?
No, we'll take her public comment when that item is read.
Okay, so let me explain this. So on the agenda today, we have the agenda item to approve the work on the Martin Luther King restrooms. And at that point in time, if you would please come forward and offer your comments, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Kind of thought I was out of order, but I didn't know.
Well, you're out of order. Sit down, girl. Any other public comment? Okay, with none, we will move into our consent agenda. Does council have any items they'd like to pull from the consent agenda? Larry? Karen?
Item I.
Item I. Harry?
No, ma'am.
Tom?
No, ma'am.
All right, with that, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item I?
So move.
So moved by Harry, seconded by Larry. Okay. With that, any public comment? Seeing none, we will ask for a vote of City Council on all items except I. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. We will now go to item I, and item I is consider awarding task order number 5 under ES-06-19 Professional Services RFQ to Kimley Horn and Associates Incorporated for the amount of $2,110,500 for engineering design services of Christoval Road from Paint Rock Road to South Chaplain Street. And we have Patrick here to answer questions and discuss the item, please.
Morning.
Good morning, Patrick. Thank you. I have 4 questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, were multiple bids on this fee solicited?
So we have a general contract through our engineering services department for professional services for engineering firms. So we have a list of firms that are pre-approved. With that list, we work down it as projects come up, and then we solicit a scope and fee from those firms, and then award a contract and a task order to those individual firms. So they are already pre-vetted and pre-approved with general contracts, and then we add a task order as projects come up.
Given that, how was this figure of $2,110,500 determined?
So what we did is we worked with Kimley Horn on the full scope of what this project would entail. So we got with Kimley. They're very familiar with the DSIP type of grants that we're looking at for this particular project. So working those components into the design kind of gave them an advantage in selecting them and working through that scope and fee with this particular firm. So working with Kimley, we knew that they had the capacity to perform this in the time frame that we needed, as well as the knowledge and the experience and the experience that we've had on prior projects with Kimley. We felt like that they could turn this around in the time frame that we needed.
So the fee is linked to scope of work.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what is the total scope of work?
The total scope of work is going to be a full redesign of the roadway, including curb and gutter, drainage components, a replacement of the water and sewer facilities, as well as pedestrian elements, including a shared use path and sidewalks, some road widening down Penrose, all of that, again, to meet the terms of the DSIP grant that we're going to be applying with in conjunction with this project.
So I understand that this is preliminary to application for the grant and that you have to do it in advance of that application.
Yes, ma'am. The grant is called a shovel-ready grant, which means we have to be ready to go to work when that grant's awarded. So we have a 1-year time frame from the time that grant is awarded to the time that we have to start construction on that. So hence the time frame of getting this going and getting this designed and on the shelf. Pending that we don't get the grant this year, we will reapply for multiple years until we can get it. If not, we'll back the scope off, but the design will still be valid for this project.
We appreciate you soliciting grants, certainly. So the fee is a percentage of the total cost of the project, is that correct?
It's not a percentage per se, but that's typically how we work. We usually work within the 8 to 10% of the total project's cost, of the expected project cost.
So the expected project cost
Is about
might be
$21 million.
$21 million. And if
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
not awarded the grant, do you intend to go forward or just reapply for another grant?
We will continue to apply for grants up until the time that we feel like there's not a grant available for this scope of project. At that point, we would take the design that's already taken, pare it back, whether that's pedestrian elements or roadway elements or design or drainage elements, pare it back as well we can and still have a good product to meet our budget that we do have to continue this project.
This project, this grant, we rated very, very highly on it 2 years ago. There's one little issue that kept us from getting it, but we were rated very highly on it. And this year, the grant is about resiliency. And because the Goodfield Air Force Base depends on this infrastructure to ensure that they're up and running on water and sewer, it's a pretty important resilience project.
So thank you for your complete explanation.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate
Yes,
it.
Harry?
I make one quick comment for those people that were not on council 5+ years ago. This is a project that we looked at more than 5 years ago. And I'm glad to see that we're coming to the spot where we're going to be able to start construction. Those young men from Goodfellow then will have access all the way into the city, both pedestrian and bicycles. and they can come down Cristoval Road over to Glenmore Park and then up into the city. So I'm glad to see that we're at a pot where we're going to actually start looking at the engineering on this.
Well, yeah, we're waiting for the grant, though, so, I mean, let's not mislead anybody. Unless the grant is approved, this will be a delayed project, just to be sure. Everyone
Right.
understands that. Okay. Any further questions from council? With none, thank you, Patrick. We'll take a vote. All in favor of approving item
We need a-
I, say aye. Wait a
Need a
minute.
motion first.
Oh, well, instead of voting, why don't I have a motion?
So move.
So moved by Harry, seconded by Karen. Public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. We will now move into the regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are exempt from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. Item A is discussion and guidance regarding a proposal by Basic ID IQ of San Angelo for $85,284.66 to replace and repair columns and make other minor repairs on 14 officers' quarters and other buildings at Fort Concho, and authorizing the city manager to create, negotiate, and execute an agreement. And let's just start with the following. That money's already budgeted. So it's not asking for those funds today. It's just asking for a contract to get to the funds to get the work done. Is that correct, Bob?
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning. Glad to have you here.
That is correct. The money exists in a fiscal 2022 capital account. I would also point out that it would also leave us some money to take care of other things this year, probably next. So the money is there. And it's a good deal. Staff believe it's a proper fee. And while we would love to do it ourselves, we have been perpetually understaffed now for almost 2 years, and there's no way we can get to this in a timely manner. Given the cost of materials and labor these days, we feel this is a very good deal, and we would highly recommend its approval.
Do I have questions for Bob from council?
Move to approve as presented.
Harry moved to approve. Do I have a second? Karen has seconded the motion. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you and good day.
Item B is consider approving a memorandum of understanding between the San Angelo Area Foundation and the City of San Angelo to facilitate the construction of restroom facilities at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Park and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Carl, you're on.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. We're asking Council's authorization to give the city manager authorization to finalize the negotiations of an agreement with the Area Foundation to construct restrooms at Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Park. As you may recall, Council authorized or signed a resolution back in October that supported the NAACP's application to apply for some grants and raise funds for the restrooms. They had succeeded in raising the funds. They approached the Area Foundation to work with them to receive the funds and to work the project. This MOU that's in the item that we're asking Council's authorization to move forward with is similar to the one that was done with the Fort Concho Barracks 3 and 4 for construction of those. Very similar to that. So it's a model that works, and we recommend approval of this item. Mr. Matt Lewis is here, and I think he may want to speak to the item as well, and I'll be here for questions.
Matt, please come forward.
Mayor and Council, Matt Lewis with the San Angelo Area Foundation, and we are excited to be able to hopefully move this project forward and look forward to getting the MOU wrapped up. And so we can begin the project. It's kind of the chicken or the egg. The great news is the NAACP and Shirley and our community has rallied to raise the $250,000 that was required in your prior resolution. So we're holding those funds and we're ready to get the project moving so that we can make it happen as soon as possible. It's awesome that in looking through some of the grant paperwork, I noticed that there are 16 parks in our community with restrooms, and there's 17 parks without restrooms, and there's 5 with porta potties. And, either don't have restrooms or have restrooms, but we all know those porta potties aren't the most exciting thing in the world. And it's wonderful to see that one of those parks that's in the middle with porta potties that is well used by our community would be moved up into that category of 16, now 17 public parks that would have restrooms. And I applaud that, and I look forward to being able to work with the city on getting this MOU done so that we can begin the project quickly. Any questions of me?
Any questions for Matt? None. Thank you, Matt. Any further public comment on this or questions for Carl White? We'll have public comment on the item after we take a vote, so this is really questions for Carl at this point. If there are none, then we will actually take a motion and a second, and then you'll come forward and offer comment, okay? Thank you, Michelle. So moved by Harry, seconded by Tom. Any public comment on this motion? Please come forward, Michelle.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. My name is Michelle Grooms Reed. My address is 5014 Westway Drive, zip code 76904. And as a citizen of San Angelo who uses the Martin Luther King Park, even though I don't live in the area, as I go to other parks in San Angelo, I just wanted to address something that I saw here. Let me read it to you. The restrooms will be similar to others. We have concrete walls, steel doors, fixtures, so on, so on. Vandalism does occur in all restrooms, mostly graffiti, other things, clogged toilets, urinals, so on and so on. Here are recommended criteria for addressing vandalism in the restroom. Should vandalism occur in the restrooms, and then it's offering some days that it would be closed so that things could happen. My concern was where it says, should fixtures and hardwares be damaged on the restroom, the community will be providing funding for the needed replacement parts. And I wanted the council to kind of consider that. How would you implement that when there's all of us in the San Angelo using the facility? When you say you're going to ask the community to fund, are you talking about the whole city is going to, all the citizens, every community will be responsible for this? That's my question. I was just kind of curious about that because the whole community helped raise the money. We had churches, we had businesses, we had people, personal donations that were made. It wasn't just, even though the unit 6219 of San Angelo NAACP headed it, we still had the whole community to come and to raise those funds. So I thought it was interesting that we had that, and I realized that this is, as I was told, like a partnership of the city and a private unit to build these restrooms. And now this will be like a mirror for other restrooms that are coming. So you might want to consider, how are you going to do that? If vandalism occurs, it doesn't mean someone from the community did it. It could have come from anywhere. Anyone could come and do that. All right, thank you so much.
Michelle. Further public comment?
I know there's about half a dozen people out there. Please come forward.
Seeing no public comment, okay.
Good
morning, Shirley.
I am Shirley Spears, and I'm here today representing the San Angelo NAACP. My home is located in Single-Member District 5. So I'm also here to talk about this issue with the vandalism attachment that's part of this MOU. So the MOU is one thing, and we believe that we do need to move forward with getting the Area Foundation engaged to take care of getting the restrooms installed. We have been working on this as a unit since 2019, trying to draw attention to the fact that there were no restrooms at Martin Luther King Park, and that for more than 20 years, there had been no restrooms there. I was reminded in nearly every occasion that I spoke to the council about the difference between a neighborhood park and a community park. And I was also reminded that the criteria to get restrooms was not a part of what Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Park would be a part of because it was a neighborhood park. And even though I am clearly informed, and I certainly know the difference between the word community and neighborhood, I am puzzled that now in this vandalism attachment to this MOU, the word community is used in the instances, as Ms. Reed just mentioned, that should there be damage to hardware and things of that nature. Number one, I know that this is a partnership. I think there's only been maybe one or two other occasions where something similar to this has happened in the city of San Angelo. And it was our intent originally to move forward with other of those 17, Matt, to help them get restrooms as well. But because we could not get any financial support from the city, I am not personally, nor is the NAACP personally, in a position to go out and raise $250,000 times 17 to allow a community to have restrooms. We feel that it is really discriminatory that no other park in the city has this criterion associated with it in terms of what happens when vandalism occurs. You clearly point out that vandalism does occur in a park. We know that. And we know that recently, right up before Easter, those porta potties were burned to the ground. But we also know that that wasn't necessarily residents of that community. And so we want you all to totally disregard that attachment for vandalism and treat the Martin Luther King Park as it needs to be treated. We've done our part. We raised over $250,000 without any assistance from the city. And we expect you as our representatives to remove that attachment that speaks to vandalism and requires the community to cover the cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Further public comment? If you do, please come forward. State your name, your SMD area. Yes, ma'am. You're here again. Thank you. Come on.
Ann Helm, 2626 Briar Grove Lane, District 1. I would like also for that the agreement to be, the attachment to be removed. Vandalism that occurs in any city park has to be addressed by enforcement of our laws against vandalism, and that park would be no different. We have a police department that is responsible for maintaining order, and petty crime is something that they need to address at all parks. If it should occur, they should investigate it and stop it and bring those responsible to account for what they've done and pay for it. But it should not be an event that causes people in that neighborhood or in the whole community that raised funds for the park to come up with funds to repair it.
Thank you, Ann.
Sherry Weiner. I live at 2606.
Could you speak more into the microphone
Yes.
if you wouldn't mind?
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I need to repeat anything?
I think we got it.
Sherry
so
Weiner,
thank you.
2606 Jan Drive. I'm also a member of the NAACP here in San Angelo. I just want to address our concerns, or my concerns, for just a couple of things that we'll be looking at, I guess. The one thing is that there seems to be punishment for vandalism, but it's not the vandals that will be punished. Now, I think, you know, you mentioned closing the restrooms for repairs and evaluating the vandalism. That's perfectly reasonable. But then it just sounds like punishment down here. Repeated offenses will result in shortened opening times and longer periods of closure. And that just, again, it sounds like punishment for the families that will be using it. The other thing is, how do you, Michelle mentioned this, how do you define community? Who is the community that is going to be punished, and who is the community that's going to pay for it? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and members of the council and everyone. I'm Dr. Gary Jenkins. I am the president of the board of directors of ADAC, the Alcohol Drug Addiction Council of the Concho Valley. I stand in support of the NAACP and the efforts that they have undertaken to get bathrooms built here in the city. I am in direct opposition, respectfully, of having this vandalism clause as part of the memorandum of understanding. I would like to find out, who is the community? How have you identified the community in response to paying for the damage that may possibly be done? I look at the park as any other city property to me. Someone already mentioned we have police officers that handle that should vandalism occur. We also have city property. What happens to other city property when it is vandalized, if it's vandalized? Do you hold the community, whatever that is, that definition is, do you hold that community responsible? Or do you hold the people who commit the crime responsible? And I would like to see that clause stricken from the agreement for the simple reason I think it is unfair. I think it is an insult. And I think that it doesn't do justice to the people who worked hard to get this done. So I thank you, and I hope you'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa, do you want to add comment on the word community? It's the legal document I think you all put together, so if you want to address that.
Well, I just want to clarify that the memorandum itself is just about construction of the bathroom, and then the additional document in there I'm viewing more as a policy on how vandalism is going to be addressed. And I don't see that that's any different than how we address vandalism at any of our parks. I mean, I moved here with small children, and I know there were numerous times we went to the park and the bathroom was either closed permanently or closed temporarily because something had happened in the bathroom. So the memorandum that you're approving today is just for the construction, and is just between us and the Area Foundation. This other document, if you want me to incorporate it, I'll need direction to do that. But since this is not a bathroom that was installed directly by the city, I'm assuming the community is the same people who raised the money in the first place to install this bathroom.
So just to be clear, what we're approving today is the MOU with the Area Foundation to build it. Is that correct? That's all we're approving today?
That's correct. And I see the rest, and if I'm wrong, then somebody please correct me, as instructional to staff on how we're going to address vandalism, which appears, again, to be very much how we address vandalism just generally with our public restrooms.
So we're not pulling out one restroom, one area town, and treating it differently than we do any of our other restrooms in our parks. Is that correct?
Well, I'll let Carl address that more directly than myself, but I know that we do close bathrooms.
Okay, Daniel.
If I may. So there's been discussion of community park versus neighborhood park. Neighborhood parks, by quick definition, are in the neighborhood. So if you have children, people to go visit the park, they can actually walk home if they have to go to the restroom facilities. So the city doesn't build restrooms in those parks. The cost associated with it is pretty prohibitive, but not only that, also the maintenance of it. So if you have 17 parks, for instance, that we heard a while ago that they're looking at putting restrooms in those parks, we're looking at $204,000 per year just on maintenance in those areas. So our concern, when we look at that, it's not discriminatory. You know, I hate to hear that. It's not about discrimination. It's about looking at a model, perhaps moving forward. If a group comes together and they want to raise funds to build a park in an area where we had no intention of building a park, a restroom, Who's responsible if there's damage? That's the question. Graffiti, that's not a problem. We can go in there and take care of that. Toilets being clogged up, we can take care of that stuff. But if somebody goes in there and knocks down fixtures, for instance, who's responsible for that? In a park that the city had no intention of building in the first place, but yet we're providing maintenance for that, and part of the partnership, we're providing maintenance. So that's the big question, is who takes care of that part of it? Because there is a cost associated with damage. And that's the only issue really that needs to be addressed here. And we will take direction from City Council moving forward as far as how the remainder of it will be negotiated. But I just wanted to make sure that that part of it was addressed.
So just to be clear, all we're approving today, Council, is the memorandum of understanding to create a contract between the Area Foundation and the City of San Angelo to build the facility. That is all we're doing today. We are not approving today the operating/maintenance piece of that contract today. That's separate. Is that correct? Or not?
Well,
We just need clarification.
Yeah, that's not part of the memorandum with the Area Foundation.
So-
So that is, it can be used as direction because you're addressing it and you can tell us this is how you want to address vandalism at the parks or at this particular park or at this particular restroom. But the agreement that we're approving today is just an agreement between us and the Area Foundation to build the restrooms.
Teresa,
Okay,
the
just-
other would not have to come back to council, it's just staff.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for being patient with all of this conversation. So please offer us your public comment.
Elaine Welty, 2506 Sweetbriar Drive. I'm in Precinct 5. And we're talking about the vandalism, and that is a concern. I know Ms. Hesse Smith ran on a platform of fighting petty crimes, and the vandalism would be in that. And the city, I would expect to work towards that, fighting the petty crimes. Also, when the community has raised the money, it's like they've donated this property to the city. And even though the city didn't pay for it or authorize it necessarily, it's now the city's property and the city's responsibility to care for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further public comment?
Good morning, council and everyone. My name is Sally Ayana. I live in the 124 precinct and also in the area where Martin Luther King Park is. And I just wanted to say, I would like for that to be removed. I know you're saying constantly that this is only just to see what you all will think about it. Our representative is not here to even help us to get you all to understand, and maybe she might not be for it or against, but I wanted to say that the NAACP has fought for so many things in the city and for our rights, for for being discriminated against, and now to think about toilets in a city. And Mr. Valenzuela, you mentioned that the city didn't ask for the Martin Luther King Park to be there. Is that what I'm understanding?
The restroom, yeah. I said the restroom.
No, I mean the actual park, because you're not taking a stand on helping us to make our city beautiful. I was on the committee for Make San Angelo Beautiful, Keep San Angelo Beautiful, but yet y'all don't want to help us to keep it beautiful by having Martin Luther King Park to have a bathroom in it. It takes me back to a time that I experienced outhouses and that potty toilet that you all have all over the city. Y'all are saying it like it's a big thing to have one there, but I'm sure there are some that don't have it. I don't know if you all have ever used a outhouse, but that's what it reminds me of, just have a real beautiful park, and then you're gonna have an outhouse out there. I think we need to have the bathrooms built and not have all these rules that's gonna, y'all didn't think about rules at these other parks, but now you're thinking about rules to put on it. I saw an article on a definition of outhouses, and it was not good. The way it said that you would have to make sure you have leaves to take with you, and it went on and on about things, but today it's so important that not only we have the bathrooms built, please consider we're citizens and we pay taxes in that area too. We really do, and I'm sure my time is up, but I want to emphasize it because I live over there. I love my part of town like everybody else does.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
Further public comment? If you've spoken one time, you're not allowed to come back up, okay?
No.
So, but I think there's still more people in the audience, and if you will please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Lucretia Williams, and I live at 1201 East 22nd Street. I'm coming to, I guess the main comment that was made by the gentleman, Mr. Daniel Venezuela. You know, 20 years ago, this is my community, San Angelo. I love San Angelo. I love the Martin Luther King Park. We hadn't had a bathroom there in 20 years. I'm 50 years old, so it's been gone for quite some time. My grandchildren go to that park. A lot of neighborhood children go to that park. Guess what? I don't let my children go to the bathrooms because guess what? There's no bathrooms, so they're not using no outhouse like Miss Sally said. I have to take them to the store or something like that for them to use the restrooms. And you made mention of it being a neighborhood park. Well, it's a neighborhood park, but a lot of people from different neighborhoods come to that park. A lot of people feel like they are welcome at that park. The vandalism and stuff that's being done at the park, it's not by the so-called neighborhood that's doing it. It's different people coming into our neighborhoods. The ones that burnt down the porta potty, they wasn't from the neighborhood. We respect the people in that neighborhood. We respect that park. We love that park. That park is a great historical value to San Angelo, Texas. And so my whole thing is the city, there was a bathroom there some years ago. The city removed it. So Miss Shirley, NAACP, everybody then rallied to get this money raised to get a bathroom back in the park. But you're saying it's a neighborhood park, but the city should be responsible for it should vandalism occur. I haven't been to, and I've been to a few parks in this city, and I just see that we are the only park that doesn't have facilities. And now since y'all are not putting it in, but y'all gonna tell us how y'all gonna, you know, the rules on it and the vandalism and different things like that, that doesn't, sounds like a little oxymoron to me. Y'all didn't raise the money to get the park in, but y'all not gonna help if something, y'all gonna close it down or whatever. That's what happened before, 20 years ago, when they closed it. You know, it shouldn't be this long that we should not have a bathroom facility or none of that. And I heard you state that we're only
You
talking.
could wrap up your comments,
Okay,
please.
okay, thank you.
No, you can finish your last sentence,
I can
please.
finish?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. It wasn't that long ago, we have the Juneteenth every year in that park. And it was a nice gentleman that donated us some decent porta potties last year, you know, but I need you to really understand that's a historical park. It means a lot to the city of San Angelo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. My name is
morning.
Sean Wilson. I'm out of District 4. I'm not
You
going to
want
talk
to
about the,
raise the microphone up just a bit because you're tall and we need to hear what you're
but
saying.
I'm not going to talk about the vandalism so much because it's been talked about. I think that's sunk into you. I should sink into you. What gets to me, I'm born and raised right here in Tom Green County. And for an organization to raise their own money for a park that's in the city, and the city did not want to help. I'm with an organization. I say that because I'm with an organization, and y'all are putting stipulations on an organization that you had to raise their own money in a black community. And you're going to sit up there and make them organizations here following y'all's guidelines. Well, the organization I'm a part of, we bring money to San Angelo. The gentleman over here can tell you. And it puzzles me that the organization I'm a part of, we did not set stipulations on our money that we sit here.
Further public comment? This is your last chance. The mic is open. Harry?
Actually, I've been part of this project for a long time. It's been on the CIP, city plan, capital improvement plan since I've been on council. Shirley and I talking about this 2 or 3 years ago, and we finally got to the spot where we felt like it was time to do this back in September, October of this last year. I would not like to see that particular clause in an MOU or operating instructions, or however you want to put it. The possibility of having additional restrooms in additional parks in this city is out there. But we've got to make sure that how we approach this particular MOU, and Lord, I know I don't want to spend any more taxpayer money on anything, but in the same token, I want to make sure that this public-private partnership is cemented well enough that we could step off and use this as a mirror to do other ones within the city. I do not want to have a clause in there that says that a specific entity is going to have to pay for any vandalism. Knowing that this is the first time that we've taken private money to help put restrooms in parks, at least since I've been on council. And so I would like to say that we really, and someone made a comment out there earlier, that once the money is presented and the restrooms are built, basically that becomes part of the city. So I'd like to see a way that we can make this happen where we don't saddle a specific entity with additional dollars to do what we need to do. So there's got to be some middle ground here somewheres.
All right, so Teresa, just to be clear on what we're doing today. Today, we are approving only the MOU with the Area Foundation to build the facilities.
That's correct.
The attachment, as you said, is not really part of the MOU to build these facilities. That's a separate issue.
It's background on the item to explain how it's going to be maintained and managed, especially when it comes to vandalism, because from what I understand, that was a problem at this particular park before, and in all of our parks. But it is not part of the MOU with the Area Foundation, no ma'am.
So what we can do today is, number one, we can approve the MOU with the Area Foundation to start the work on building this facility. We can continue to work on the attachment or the M part of this that allows for conversation and input, as we've heard today, for the maintenance and the operation of the facility. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what we're doing today, can do today, is simply approve to get started the building and the construction, the design, construction, build, with the area foundation to get this restroom built. We will separately continue to have a conversation about the vandalism operation, who pays what, for further comment and approval later. Is that correct?
If that's how, yes, that's how you want to manage it, we can certainly do that.
I think we need to sit back down with the organizations, people, community, whatever, and talk through the MOU to better understand and make sure it's written in a manner that people can join and approve and support. But what I also know is we need to get this area foundation up and running, put the people's money to work and get the restroom built. And as we're, over the next month or so, if we could just work on the balance of the language and the comments addressed today.
Ma'am?
Yes, Larry?
If I understand you correct, you're suggesting that we strike that paragraph?
Yes, sir, for today.
Do we
Work
need
on
to
the
make a motion
language.
on that?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we strike it.
Okay, we're going to strike it today. That means we're going to have further conversation down the road on it. It's just not part of the approval today, but it will come back for approval.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay? Seconded by Karen. Further public comment?
So I just, Brenda, if you don't mind.
Tom?
Yeah, I want everybody here to know, we've heard you, these bathrooms are gonna start. I mean, you're not gonna have a problem getting 5 people to roll to start these bathrooms. I mean, we've wanted them, we've seen them. But I want to give a little bit different perspective on when we establish these and put in this building, we wanna make sure they're lasting and they're in good shape and they last on continually, for as long as we can basically take care of them. I used to work for the Stock Show and Rodeo in San Angelo, and on those grounds, we have multiple bathrooms. And I just think in the policy aspect of this conversation, there are times we need to lock the doors. I mean, we had people moving in, we had homeless, you go in to use a restroom and there may be somebody moved in there for 2 days. I mean, I think all the city is asking here is a little flexibility in how they handle the policy for this. And that may be at midnight what Teresa talked about, being able to lock the doors. We get that. We don't want to be give me just a second, Shirley, but I think we need some flexibility in how we look at how we maintain these. And I don't want anybody to get lost in the fact that they think we don't want these bathrooms there. Okay, the foundations come through, they put the money up, we're going to roll with this part, but that's what we're voting on today. The policy is totally different. But I think we all need some flexibility and input on when policy applies for the upkeep and safety of these items. That's all.
There are many bathrooms that are locked at various times for all the right reasons. You don't want to be taking your child into the restrooms and find something there that you don't want there. So it's not all about, again, what we are voting on today is the MOU to get the building started, and we are going to continue to work on the MOU in terms of operation, maintenance, et cetera. We're not approving any piece of that today. Shirley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You just mentioned for public comments again, and I just had something else to say, but I want to speak to what Tom is saying, is that the design that we presented to the council last fall, it does say that the bathrooms are monitored and they open at a certain time and they close at a certain time. I want to make sure that we're not mixing apples and oranges here. The motion that's pending right now, Mr. Miller, thank you, Ms. Hesse Smith, thank you, that we remove that attachment that speaks to vandalism, and that is what our whole point was today. While I hear that the MOU is what we're here for, when you have those documents included, it's all a part of it. And so we want to make sure that that is clear. So we do want to make sure that everybody understands, we're not talking about, the city has said back in October that if we raise the money, we could get it built and you all would maintain it. We're asking you to honor that. And as far as policy and direction that's being a part of that attachment, Madam Attorney, if that is recommendation to council, that is what the pending motion is, we don't want those criterion as part of that. The design of the restrooms will open and close at a certain time. So there's not anybody, Tom, that's going to be able to go in there and sleep all night long unless they're sleeping all night long after we close the park. So I want to make sure, and then something else was misstated, and I wanted Carl to speak to it, but there's no other park in the city that has this type of criterion. I know this is the first time that we've had such a partnership. I keep getting told what a difference between a community and a neighborhood park is. You know, I'm a degreed professional. I know the difference. The point is, we have raised this money from the community. The point is that whether it is neighborhood or community, because as Ms. Lucretia said back in the day, there were restrooms there. So the point is, why are we having to go through so much? We did what we said we would do. We're asking the city to support the work that the citizens have done to help you because you didn't have $250,000 to spend on this. We get that. We raised the money. Now we're wanting you all to listen and hear us and see us about what the rules are about that restroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further comment on the motion and the second on the item? Harry? Larry, would you repeat your motion, please?
The motion is to strike that paragraph that we've been talking about all this morning in toto.
The rest of it.
Paragraph 4.
That is the motion on the floor.
I just want to say, Mayor, that this is the model for all future restrooms. So whatever the city council approves today will be the model moving forward for future restrooms. We take direction from council. We move forward with whatever your will is. But again, part of my major responsibility is fiscal responsibility and looking at the future. We know we have so many competing interests as far as road repairs, infrastructure issues. So on my part, I'm just trying to make sure we're doing everything we possibly can to address the needs of the whole community. But again, whatever is passed today will be the model moving forward.
All right, just to repeat what we're doing, we are approving the MOU that allows for the construction and the build of the restrooms in MLK. We are taking out the paragraph 4 for further discussion down the road. That part is not a part of the approval, but we have decided that we will further discuss that and decide the action that would be taken on that as a future policy for all restrooms in the parks. So it's not specific to this park, it will be specific to all parks in terms of the maintenance and upkeep of the facilities. Yes, Julia. Wait a minute.
May I just make sure that we're correct on something? It won't be all parks. It's all future parks that are neighborhood parks where monies are raised to put restrooms in those areas that the city did not have plans to install restrooms. So on our end, of course, we have the maintenance associated. Yes, we did say that back in October that we would provide maintenance, and that's the $12,000 per year that is in this MOU. But now above that, when you start talking about destructive elements, that's part that I want to make sure that we're very clear on. Is that something that we are responsible for, or the entity that's raising the funds? It's not just the NAACP, it could be some other group that is raising funds for another project in the future. Again, it just goes back to fiscal responsibility and making sure that everybody's aware that, yes, if you raise money for 17 restrooms, wonderful, but again, understand that the city would be responsible for a lot of maintenance, over $200,000.
In regard to that, one of those similar situations would be Glenmore Park. Glenmore Park's heavily utilized. It's a neighborhood park. It has porta potties. Similar situation. So that would be an example of what you're talking about.
We have porta potties in many parks.
Correct.
Okay, Julia.
I just want to clarify for the minutes, we are not removing paragraph 4 from the MOU. We're discussing paragraph 4 in the attachment that was regarding the vandalism, which is not being approved today. So
that would be correct.
Just so the minutes reflect that appropriately, I just want to ensure that that's clear to everyone.
Okay. Larry's got a frown on his face, so explain that further.
Perhaps it would be easier to take the two things separately. So take a motion on the MOU itself with the area foundation, and then take a motion on the actual background information regarding the vandalism and what you might want to do with that going forward.
So Larry?
Let me get this straight. The original motion is now going to be, we accept the MOU as it stands right now without the paragraph removed?
There is no paragraph in the MOU that deals with vandalism. So what everybody's referring to as an attachment, I mean, if it's in here, somebody show me where it is in the MOU itself. That's a document that was in the background information, but in the MOU document, that's the contract that's going to be signed, that is not referenced anywhere.
What we're
Because
trying to
that-
approve simply today is the document that approves the MOU to build the restroom with the area foundation.
Correct.
The background documents that are attached to that deal with vandalism, et cetera, is not what we're looking to approve right now.
I mean, you can take action on that today, but that's not part of the MOU today. That is an operating policy related to these kinds of bathrooms. That should be.
Building some bathrooms.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to build the bathrooms today. We want to approve the MOU with the area foundation to build the bathrooms. The separate item inclusive in the packet that deals with vandalism, et cetera, is not what we're going to approve today. Is that correct, council? So let's go back and relook at, just a minute, Harry. What we're going to do is ask that we have a motion on the floor, which was a motion to approve the MOU and remove paragraph 4 of the supporting documents. So we've got to take a vote, yay or nay on that. Then we can take another motion to totally eliminate any conversation on the additional documents that deal with vandalism, et cetera. So you're looking at two things. One, an MOU with the area foundation to build, construct. Second of all, approval of the documents that guide us on how we manage and oversee and look at vandalism and paying for vandalism, burning down restroom parks after they're built, et cetera. Is that correct?
That's correct. The area foundation has no role in that, and the MOU is with
That's
the area
separate.
foundation. Yes.
And I think what we want to do today is get the restrooms up and running and the construction built. And with that, we will then have some meetings to further discuss the documents that would be our guiding documents for all future restrooms that would be built in any park with community fundraising. Is that clear? Or just muddy as a
Can I
dry
say
creek?
something?
Okay.
I just wanted to say that we would like the whole background document removed, and I think that's what you just told me, that we're not going to discuss that.
We're not going to discuss that
Not just
today.
paragraph 4, but the whole document.
We're
is
removing
going-
it today
Okay.
for further discussion. So
Thank
we're
you.
not voting on that today. What we're voting on is let's get the restroom built.
Okay,
The
that
MOU
was
with the
my
area
concern.
foundation.
We don't want just paragraph 4, we want the whole document. All right, thank you.
For further review and consideration down the road, okay? With that, do I need to take a vote on the existing motion that's out there? Okay, so if you don't support just removing paragraph 4, we would vote no on that right now. And then we would have a new motion to approve simply the MOU with the area foundation and not with the documents, none of the background documents that describe the maintenance, oversight, and funding of future problems.
Would Council Miller, would
We can amend it.
Councilmember Miller be willing to just remove his
I will
motion?
remove my motion.
That motion is removed. Now may I have a new motion?
Motion to approve item B from the regular agenda.
Item B, which is simply the MOU with the area foundation, seconded by
second.
Harry.
Everyone seconds.
We've got 3 seconds, one motion. I think we've had public comment on this, but I certainly will offer an opportunity for further comment on it. Okay, we will take a vote, all in favor of approving the MOU with the area foundation to create documents and build the restrooms at MLK. May I have a vote?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. 5-0. We will move forward, Teresa, and work on documents on how we would manage all future restroom facilities where the public has raised the funds and how we deal with the payment of vandalism, fire, destruction, etc. Is that clear? Okay. That means that we will move on to item C, and it is the first reading and public hearing of an ordinance annexing into the city of San Angelo by petition of the property owner an unaddressed 37.98 acre tract being 36.60 acres and a 1.38 acre access easement in the M. Meyer Survey number 169, abstract number 1647, and part of Block 9, Upton and Collins subdivision, Tom Green County, Texas, located southeast of Country Club Road and South Ratliff Road. John, you're on.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. You described in your opening the area, so I won't describe it again, but it is this area here in the hatched area. It is currently outside the city limits. The property owner has requested that it be incorporated into the city limits through annexation. So this is a voluntary annexation request at the request of the property owner. There was a final plat approved on this area, creating 52 single-family lots and then one commercial lot up in the corner, and we'll talk about that more on the zoning case that's coming after this. But that plat was approved at the April Planning Commission meeting. I can get more into that if there are questions, because I know at the Planning Commission meeting there were questions about the timing of the plat versus the annexation and zoning. But this is part of our annexation plan. The city has adopted an annexation plan that defines certain areas, some as immediate annexation, others as longer-term annexation areas for the future. We use that in kind of long-range planning for the future. This isn't an area that's designated as immediate, so in other words, we have the ability to serve it, and it can come into the city with no problems on an immediate basis. The state law does require a service plan, and you'll see in your packet there is a service plan as part of this annexation approval that defines how we will serve that area. And in general, the service plan basically says once this is annexed, we will serve it like we do all the other parts of the city. This one does have a little bit of a wrinkle that's different from many annexations in that a portion of this area is within the water service area of the Millersview Dual Service Water Supply Corporation. And so you can see here in this particular map, that area in the crosshatch is in their service area. So all of the rest of this can be served by city water once it's annexed into the city, but these lots over here would be served by Millersview Dual. As included in your packet, there is a process in the works where Millersview is agreeing to give up their service area and give that over to the city. I believe there's agreement by both the city and Millersview Dual to do that, but it does have to go to the State Public Utility Commission and be approved. So that has not been done yet. So you'll notice in the service plan as it's proposed right now, it basically says the city will serve it if we get permission from the state to serve it. Otherwise, those areas will continue to be served by the private water supply corporation. This area in red you see is the entirety of the proposed area. They have proposed phasing the development of this entire subdivision. So the first phase, as you saw on the previous slide, would be up here, and then working their way south as they continue to develop. And we may come back to this slide. I know there are some questions here on the plat. For example, this road that comes in, the location of that road in relationship to the property across the street, I know was an issue that came up at the Planning Commission meeting. Staff does recommend approval of this annexation, as did the Planning Commission, although technically the Planning Commission is not responsible for annexations. We take that to them just for their information. So they did actually not take a vote on that, but they did discuss it and were aware of it at that meeting. But again, this does come with a recommendation for approval by staff. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
If you go back to the map, From what go back one more. And yeah, that'll work. All right, so what I understand, there are citizens that are very concerned about that middle, what would be into the cul-de-sac, and wondered if that road that's at the bottom of this plat could be put there and that cul-de-sac area be brought down to where that road is, so that the road would not, so that the citizens who already live
Something
there.
like that. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, and then that road, because you have to have the second exit, right, out of the.
Yeah, and that's really part of the concern here is this area is too large under our ordinance requirements not to have an exit out to Ratliff Road here. And so I think, in fact, one of their original designs of this subdivision did not have any exit out onto Ratliff Road, but that creates an issue in terms of block length and maximum lengths of roads without a secondary access and all of that. And so they did, in fact, have to add a connection out this way and out this way in order to comply with those ordinance standards. And of course, there's another one here. And then finally, up here is the other connection. And so
there's 4 exits.
Yeah, and our ordinances require, well, and there's actually a future road that will continue down here. Now, they don't actually connect to that road, but yeah, our ordinances require interconnectivity. Basically, what you don't want is a bunch of subdivisions to develop with limited entrances and exits. You want to give people the opportunity, as a whole area develops, you want to give them multiple opportunities to get in and out.
So the good example would be Foster Road and Butler Farms, where that was approved and built with one exit only.
Yeah, now, ultimately, there may be more connectivity as areas around that develop, but yeah, that's a good example.
But it was approved as a plat with one exit, Foster Road,
correct,
to the frontage road.
Right, and as we've seen with that can create problems if that one entrance and exit has flooding, for example. You've trapped a whole neighborhood with no other way in and out, or police and fire response times are affected by not having multiple ins and outs.
But you've just showed us 4 exits, which would seem to go, is that what you just showed us?
Yeah, that's correct. And
Why
that's based
4?
on length. So this distance is such that multiple entrances and exits would have to be out to Ratliff Road based on that length. It comes down to their basically standards that block length standards and connectivity standards that our ordinance is based on, that require every so much distance you have to have another exit out from a subdivision.
So go back one more slide again to.
Oh, wrong way. This one.
Yes, sir. And then show the exits on this one.
So there's one exit there and the other exit
there. So there's just 2.
On this first phase, yeah, there would only be 2.
Okay.
And of course, this would continue in the future, but initially it would be a dead end until that next phase started to develop.
Okay, so the big question, as I understood it, is if you look at, I have to get up here so I can read it. That middle row, that middle cul-de-sac area.
This one?
I understand that the biggest issue are the homeowners who've lived there for a long time. Let me let the homeowners speak to it. I don't want to say what I don't know and say it wrong. So let me be quiet and allow public comment. If you're here to speak about this issue, please come forward, state your name, your district if you are in the city or in the county, and make your comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Robert Wicks. We live at 6925 South Ratliff Road.
Can you point that out on this map?
I'm at the end of Bunker Drive. The headlights will be right in my living room window. Right.
Drive that we're talking
Yeah, if you, and I have also comments about the rezoning, so I'll try to make this part specific to item C here. And I really appreciate the chaplain's prayer right about this point, because this area of concern comes to us because we had no knowledge of this happening until it was already approved, until this design was already approved. We knew that there was some things going on. We knew that there was some surveying, but there's been surveying going on for 15 years. And when it came down ultimately to this design, and there's other pictures that show how narrow Ratliff Road is and how tight the area of Country Club Road is, these access points, the way they were designed, impact those of us that have lived there for a long period of time. I'll save the parts that I have potentially for the safety part on the other one, but it just simply caught us totally off guard to only be told that they were trying to maximize their profits is why it has to be built that way. We were told that the city told the developer that because of the way the water lines would run, it had to be built that way, that an outlet point had to be at that point. And I think that simply from that design aspect, we were, I guess I could say that just the disappointment, put yourself in my shoes, my wife's shoes, my mother-in-law's shoes, where it's one thing to have 52 homes put in that first area, but it's another where what we see from knowing and living there, people coming to Ratliff Road to exit that live on that side of it, the increase of traffic and safety that will impact that area. I don't know how else to put it other on that part of it.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Sure. Oh, it didn't. That was good.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you, council members. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate this. Like Bob mentioned, the thing that we were concerned about, and I'm going to use another word, and I don't know about the other names, but I am very offended about this whole thing. We were not told at all about any of this, and the two that voted with us said they wondered why none of us came to object. We didn't know. It was very hush, hush, hush. I will say this, and a lot of you know me. I sell real estate. I could not find out who bought it and what was going on until it was done. So the thing about it is we bought there to be in the country. You know, it's quiet, it's close to town, it's in Wall Schools. And so it was peaceful. And I know that we didn't buy the property was up for sale and someone else did. But to annex that into the city takes all of that away. Our road is very, very narrow. Where he lived, it's not like a street, wide like a street, it's much narrower. So when you stop there at that stop sign to exit, you're almost in his front yard. That's how close it is. The road right now, we're having trouble with the solar panels coming around, the trucks. They're driving entirely too fast. We have children out there that play. The road is not wide enough. You can pass on it, and the curve that comes into the second plat of the houses being built, they cannot turn there with their huge tractor-trailer rigs. It is too narrow and too sharp to turn, because I have been there and watched them, because my road comes off of the circle, and so I have to stop there, and they come down the road. And I have waited till they got there to see what happens at the curve. And that curve is going to come right into the second layer of this. So, you know, we're concerned that they're tearing all the trees down. And, of course, that's their right to do that. They own the land. But what if this project doesn't get off the ground? Who's going to fix the mess? I'm not saying it will or it won't. But, you know, in life, we know things come up and things happen. You know, our market's going crazy. We don't know what's going to happen with real estate. So there's just a lot of concerns. And we were just not pleased at the way it was handled, that we had no say to object before it was done. Thank you very much.
Ma'am,
Yes.
could I get you to say your name into the microphone for the record and your address?
I didn't tell who I was?
No, ma'am.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, I guess I take it back. My name is Glenda Martindale. I live at 7351 South Ratliff Road.
John, you want to speak to the annexation rules, who has to be notified or not notified, or what happens when an area is being asked to be annexed?
Yeah, and I'll speak briefly to the plating process as well, but there are no notification requirements. We don't send out notices for an annexation, and that's pretty typical. I mean, that's not something that we've ever sent notices on. It's not required in state law. It's not required by our ordinance. For the plating process is similar. The plating process for subdivisions creating lots is a ministerial process. So basically, if a property owner submits a plat to subdivide their property, as long as it meets state law and our ordinance, we have to approve it by state law. Most plats, with very few exceptions, very unique exceptions, almost every plat does not require any notice. So had this already been in the city limits, had it already been zoned for single-family homes, there would have been no notice. Again, partly because if they meet the standards of our subdivision ordinance, we are required to approve it. And that's partly for transparency for the development community. We have rules. They know if they meet those rules, they will be approved. And so I'm aware of the concerns of the neighbors that they weren't aware of this, but I want to caution you that even had this been done in a different order, there would not have been notice to those property owners because, again, basically, if they meet our subdivision rules, these must be approved, and there's really no discretion on the part of the Planning Commission who approves plats or on the council, except for the fact when you're making the rules. And in this particular case, I think staff is sympathetic to, someone having a road that directly faces into their home. But unfortunately, our ordinances don't have any provisions that would allow us to prevent that. It's possible we could amend our ordinances to say, we don't want that to happen or we discourage it. But there's really nothing the Planning Commission can do to force them to move that road to a different location.
Does our planning process include making sure that the roads that support this development are safe, as was brought out before, that these big trucks and trailers building the solar farms are not safe for the residents and can't even turn on these roads? So what is the requirement? And obviously the county, it's in the county would have had the ability, I'm assuming, with the solar plant to have addressed the issue of these roads don't support what's going to happen here. And I know you're not county, so
sure.
I
The
get it.
county, I assume, could have rules, limiting, weight of trucks and not allowing truck traffic on that road. I'm not for sure about that, but what I will say is that our process does, as part of developing, the developer has to ensure adequate facilities, not only water and sewer, but roads. And so as part of this development, they will be required to improve Ratliff Road, to widen it, and that's how development typically occurs. Oftentimes, old county roads are narrow, but as development occurs along them, the developers widen it. In this case, on their side of the road. If future development happens on the other side of the road, it would be widened on that side. But that's basically the way the process works, so it will be widened. I know in the Planning Commission there was a concern that they'll widen it here and here, but it'll still be narrow there in the middle. But again, that's kind of the way the process works, and the city staff, Public Works and Engineering will work with them to ensure that, where it narrows down, it will taper and be as safe as possible. But then if and when this property develops, they would be responsible for widening that piece. But that is addressed in our process in terms of how those roads get widened as development occurs.
All right, so I think the big question then is, I think that, are the developers here today? Would you come forward and just talk about the one big issue, and that is if there's flexibility and potential for not having that road come and all the traffic face directly into this one person's front yard and front window? Is there flexibility? Can you show us the flexibility you could give us on this issue?
Council, Casey Pointer, developer, 705 West Ratliff Road. I actually live pretty close to here at least. Concerning flexibility on Bunker Drive, no, not really. It doesn't flow well. It doesn't work. We went down multiple routes. We actually originally had a cul-de-sac right there, and we had to pull that out so that we could have another exit. Primarily, there's a block length requirement that we have to meet on the south half here, so we needed to be as far south as we could so that we could meet the south half block length. Just the distance between the exits of the subdivision. If you'll notice, the one out to the east there is a future, it will be built into the property line, but there will not actually be an exit there until further development takes place.
Point that out on that map if you would.
Oh, boy.
Just draw with your finger.
Yeah.
Use my finger. Right there. So that's a future road leading to further development if it happens in the future. But we will build that out, but it won't go anywhere right now. I would like to state that, there's a lot about we were very hush-hush, or we didn't want to have people know about this. That's absolutely not true. We did not keep it quiet. Mr. Jay Dykes and his son Colby live right in the middle, which we are completely surrounding. I've definitely talked to him multiple times because of the fact that we were going to surround him. He's not here today because he understands that it's going to develop, and it has to for our city's growth and our needs and our wants.
This isn't, we understand the need for housing, so
Yes,
as a
ma'am.
council, that's not really the issue here. I'm just trying to, when you do development, what you hope to do is to make as many people happy as you possibly can, although we understand that you're not going to make everybody happy, and that happens with
Absolutely.
almost every big development like this that occurs. There's someone or some persons who are not happy with it. But I know that if I had a new road that was going to be built and all that traffic and those lights would be coming directly into my front window, I would certainly not be happy. So
Completely understand.
in response to that, my question, of course, was what alternatives exist? And can there be some alternative that we could work through to try to better solve that issue?
I do not believe so. Yes.
Tom?
Can you show me the exact road that we're talking about? Just draw an arrow on it. And that feeds all the way through to Ratliff?
Yes, sir.
Go back to that. John, would you come up a minute and help with this map? Go back to that one, that I keep referring to that has the two cul-de-sacs and then the road. That one. So show us on that map, because the issue is, I believe, that center cul-de-sac looking thing there and coming out to the street, the road where Mr. Wick's house is. Can you point where Mr. Wick's house is on that map, please? Right there.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you can't move that cul-de-sac property down there and the road up there, which would be more in the center of the development anyway?
We won't meet that block length going south.
And that's the
Distance
big issue.
between the exits, yes, ma'am.
And John, can you speak to that?
Yeah, so if I understand what you're suggesting is perhaps this road could be the one that
Yes.
comes out, and then this one gets cul-de-sac.
Yes, sir.
I'd have to do the measurements. If Casey says that doesn't meet, then I'm sure that's the case.
So that wasn't ever discussed in the plat or in the planning
issue is
meeting?
the distance from there to the next street is a maximum of, I think, 2,200 feet. So if we moved it up there, if that exceeds 2,200 feet, then it doesn't meet our ordinance standards.
And that's the issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Council, do you have questions, comments? Tom, you look like you have something on your mind.
So, I mean, we've looked at that, we're in a need of housing, we'll go through there, and I have friends that live on Country Club Lake Estate Circle and the Rope area, I mean, spend tons of time there. I want to say in time, this would not be as big as a problem as it is today, and see that, but as, you know, you're not going to see your traffic into that for probably a year or two. I mean, as this develop, how long does it take you to get to that street? In your development process?
We will build the street out. So all these streets in that section 1 that you're seeing, which is phase 1 of construction, will be built out. So there could be lots being built on down here. Currently, we do not have any contracts on those lots. They're all in the cul-de-sacs because those are the most valuable, obviously. But it will be built out. We have to build it out. We have to provide that second exit.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's a safety issue, and it's ordinance, and it's coming in, and I mean, the bad thing about development is, none of us, we all wish we had tons of insulation beside us, but even on the north side of town, development has by far exceeded where we were, and is miles past us and continues to, and this part with what we've got going on at the airport and the lake is going to expand, and this is just a part of it, and I wish there was a better way to keep everybody comfortable on this, but I just don't see it.
Karen?
Yes, ma'am. It's a good moment, based on Tom's comment, to note that it's my understanding that part of the frustration of the citizens is related to the lack of notice, the lack of notification, and that also again points to the fact that we have concerns about how notification is handled for the city, and it's complicated further in this case because some of the people affected by this proposal are residents of the county. And so, according to John, there's no requirement for the city to notify those people of what may be heading their way. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I want to remind council and the mayor and the city manager and John that we have a problem with this. We don't want an angry mob. We don't want people unhappy about what you're doing. If there was a way that the citizens could have their say, I don't even know what that would look like, but of the people that spoke this morning from the neighborhood, I would be curious what they think about that. And something that all of you in this room cannot see is what I saw, and I think Harry saw when this was heard by the Planning Commission. Dozens of chairs had to be added to the room because there were so many people from that area that were unhappy about what was happening to them. So there are flaws and problems and shortfalls that will continue probably to contribute as we move into these areas where we want to annex.
Thank you, Karen. Harry?
So to Karen's point, this could be a lesson learned for future annexations. And just because we're not required to notify the citizens, maybe it's a good idea that we think about how we can get them involved in the process. That way, maybe we can have some of these questions answered ahead of time instead of doing it later. We all know that when people find out something, there are always items that are added to from one person to the next in communications. And so if there had been an opportunity for Casey to present us to the citizens early on, there may not have been as many questions. So I don't know how we do that, but it certainly is an opportunity for us to learn from this particular lesson.
John, is that a city ordinance? Of course, it was county, so the issue is county versus city, but big issue state. So what does the state say?
Well, the state does not require any notices for annexations. We could do that. It's not something I've ever seen another city do. And oftentimes annexations are fairly large, so if we look at the area, we would have to notify, assuming we use the normal 200-foot notification like we use for zoning. It would be well, we don't do that many annexations, but it would be an increase in the amount of work done for an annexation process. But it definitely could be done. Again, I would caution for something like this, we have to be careful, though, to avoid giving citizens the impression that they have an impact when they don't necessarily. So the subdivision process, again, as an example, is state law says if it meets our rules, we must approve it. And so if we start to send out notices for plats, for example, you might be giving the citizens the impression that they can come and speak. And I mentioned earlier, there's a very limited set of plats where we are required to give notices, and we have that problem with those. Citizens come and speak and say, I don't want this, and then we say, well, but it meets our ordinance, so Planning Commission, you have to approve. And so that frustrates those citizens who got a notice, came out and spoke, only to learn that they really didn't have a voice because it's not a discretionary decision when it comes to a plat. And so that's something that we should be mindful of.
John, in this case, you're stating that because this property, the plat, meets all of our requirements, just because it shines lights somewhere or another is not a part of our ordinance that the Planning Commission could have done anything about.
That's right. And let me check real quick. I thought we might have included a picture, but there's, as I understand it, and the property owner can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can see here there are some trees, and I believe there's also a fence along that property line. So I know headlights have been mentioned a couple of times. I don't believe headlights would shine into this home because of those trees and the fence. There may be other concerns, but there is some buffering between those two things.
They could request to the developer that they take that into consideration and try to accommodate, but as far as enforcement, they couldn't have done anything.
Okay, further questions from council? No. Okay, thank you. I see someone coming forward to speak. Good morning. Your name and where you live, please.
Carmen Lira, and I live in 1935. And y'all say, Corey said they're going to expand Ratliff Road. If you've been out there, Ratliff Road today is very small. And there's a lot of electrical poles where the mailboxes are to the resident that live on Ratliff Road. So how are they going to expand the road? They're going to have to move all those mailboxes, and I don't know what they're going to do with all those electrical poles. It's all along Ratliff Road where he's going to build. And that is going to be a very dangerous road because right now there's young kids that drive there, and when you're coming in from Grand Canal Road, if you don't make the turn almost to the fence of the first owner of the empty lot that he has his house for back, and another car is coming out, you will have an accident there. It's a very little road. And yes, all those trucks that are passing, those large trucks, the big trucks for the panels, I've been thinking that road is not strong enough for all those heavy trucks. We're gonna have problems, and then the county takes forever to fix a hole when it gets over there. Now, they'll do Country Club Road and Grand Canal Road, but not us. But that is something that if you want to go look at the little Grand Canal Ratliff Road, you may, because they need to expand it bigger, and it's going to take into his houses. And another thing, the addition before that, all the exits from that area go out to Grand Canal Road, where he's going to use a lot of Ratliff Road for the people to exit out. You're talking of a lot of cars. and a lot of young kids. And when somebody gets killed there, a bad accident, I promise you, it's going to happen. You have to go out there and look at that area. That's all. And now they're going to be in X to San Angelo. And also they say Millersview water. Well, if you live out there, at least once a month, you don't have water from Millersview. And the water is brown, is yellow. If you wash any white things, your things are going to be yellow and ruined. Water is a problem over there. He said he's going to get some from y'all and Millersview, but Millersview has its problems. We have our problems with Millersview. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Carmen. Tom?
No, I was just
Okay.
saying, in the background, all this, the Millersview water leaves the documentation and it all comes to city providing.
Right.
Don't know if that's any wider, but
All right, if you've spoken one time, I can't, won't allow you to come back again. Okay. Please come forward.
Touch the screen. Okay, so this is Ratliff Road, this is Ratliff Road here. Okay, this here, how do I take that out? Okay.
it's magic.
This he's gonna have to give, the builder, from what I understand, they have to give, is it 8 foot or 10 foot? 8 foot or 10 foot?
10 foot, he said.
10 foot, okay. Okay, so we say we come right in here. Okay, all these trees are being gone. They're pushing all these trees down. All these trees are not here anymore, and it's a mess. So all of this green is going. So he's going to have to come in 10 foot here. I can't draw. Then we come back out here, and then we come in 10 foot here. Okay. Right here, that's that corner I'm talking about. A truck cannot on that road go here, one of those huge trucks, go here. 2 cars barely. You have to watch or you'll hit head on. They cannot make this turn. It's too sharp. So you have this road right here that's going to stop here at this dangerous curve. There's nothing you can do because in the plat records, there is nothing by the county that was given when the surveys were done on this side of the road. There is no easements that the city can get because it's the people's property. I checked into all that. So it has to come from this side. But right there is that, I'm talking about the curve, that the trucks cannot make the curve. They have to almost stop. I live right here. And I come out here and I watch them, and they can't make that curve because they're too long. And they drive so fast coming down that road. Like she said, they don't need to be on the road. But when he threw the map up, it just dawned on me, this is where you're coming out here, right in the dangerous curve. This stays here, then you come back out here. And you
I
get
assume
10
that plat, if you got, really involved in that plat and saw the actual work, you would see that the 10 foot is incorporated into that already. You're not taking 10 foot more, is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay. Excuse me. As part of the plat, they would dedicate the additional right-of-way on the developer's side, and then the extra width to the street would be added to that side. So none of it would come from the other side. It will all come into this property.
But it would only be added from this development side because the other side is based off of the people who own the property on the other side who would have to improve that half of the road? How's that working?
Yeah, if I understand that, that's correct. Now, so this area, for example, that's undeveloped, if they were to come in to plat those out, they would also have to widen their side of the street. But in these areas that are already developed, that likely would never happen.
My assumption is that in laying out this plat, there's an understanding that they know about the electrical lines that are there. I mean, that had to have all been taken into consideration when this plat was laid out, that's incorporated into this plan as drawn.
Yes, they would be responsible for moving over any electric lines, I mean, mailboxes. Of course, it wouldn't be on, again, none of the widening happens on this side of the street. It would all be on the developer's side, but yeah, they would have to accommodate that in their construction plans.
So we would have a half undeveloped road?
Well, there's a road there already. They would just be widening it, but in the direction of their development, which is how all of these developments occur. We often have, partial widening on one side, and then when the other side of the road develops, there would be widening
I
on
haven't
that
seen one
side.
of those, but I'm assuming that you know.
Yeah, but it's not uncommon for that other side, since that's mostly developed, not to ever get widened. But at least the road, instead of 24 feet wide, will be 34 feet wide, which is, close to our standard anyway.
And there was no consideration and thought process relative to that corner down there where it's considered quite dangerous right now? First of all, the solar farm, I'm not sure what their time frame in completing that project is, but sooner or later, those trucks will stop.
Well, they'll still be maintaining and bringing things in.
Well,
I don't
not
know
the
why
same
they're
amount,
using
yeah.
our road anyway.
Yeah.
They should be going 277. They're closer to 277, but they're coming our road because they can drive fast. My other thing is, he mentions we have roads like this. You just mentioned, I've never seen a road, I'm driving down and I'm here and all of a sudden I'm here and then I'm here again. It's like a checkerboard. I mean, kids driving and people driving, they're here wide. Well, then when they have to come back in because the road's gone, I don't care how much tapering you do, it's not that wide to get tapered back in. If they're not paying attention, they're going to hit somebody head on. Thank you.
Thank
When I
you.
saw the map, I wanted to show you where the circle was.
Appreciate
Thanks.
that. Thank you. Further public comment?
I'm Sherry Wicks. I also live on 6925 South Ratliff Road. And my concern is for Country Club Road. We've all been talking about Ratliff Road, but the Country Club Road, which is up here, is going to get all this traffic. And then the convenience store, I think it's going to be right there. Is that correct? And this road is just a two-lane highway. And they have granted variances, and I'm kind of confused at why that was granted. And there, I guess, was a study, I'm sure, a highway study or something that granted the variances for not widening the road on Country Club Road.
John would have to answer that. I can't.
Okay. I'm just reading out of your planning board minutes, or it says that the granting of the variance to not widen Country Club Road is not detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare. And I was wondering how that got determined, and who determined that that would not be detrimental to public safety, because that road is already very congested as it is. And if, there's going to be 52 houses, 2 cars per house, another 100 cars, and then a convenience store, and all the traffic coming in and out of there, seems like it's going to be kind of detrimental to our public safety. But that's kind of what my question was as far as the variances. And while I'm here, because I can't come back up, the Ratliff Road, they get granted a variance that they would only have to do an additional 8 feet instead of the 10. Is that correct? Y'all are saying the 10 feet?
It's 10.
Okay, well, I'm reading the final plat. Okay.
Total of 18.
So I'm just curious, my one question was who determined and how the variances were determined, and what kind of public safety study that they did, or they just sat there and said, oh, okay, well, no, we don't need to widen the road. Because to me, I would think that they would need a, highway safety study or something to determine that that road didn't need to be widened. And again, as far as Ratliff Road is concerned, if they're going to do the 8 feet or the 10 feet.
I can address that last one first. It's 10 feet of additional right-of-way, so they're giving the property for 10 feet of land, but then they're actually widening the road 8 feet. So the pavement increase would be an additional 8 feet, but that 8 feet is within the 10. So it's not 18, but it's the 8 is within that 10. Now I drew a blank on the other question.
Well, the
The
variances,
country club,
yeah.
yes. Just a few years ago, in the last 10 years, country club was completely redone, reconstructed by the city. And so at that time, they reconstructed the road, designed it a certain width, built curbs along the side. And so in cases like that where the city has gone in and completed a road to a specific standard that was planned for at that time, we don't typically then make a developer widen it beyond that. And so multiple developments along Country Club Road have come in, and that's been the same answer, is not to require them to widen it because the city put in that investment to make it a certain width. You know, perhaps at some point in the future, we'll determine as development happens in this area that now it's not wide enough and it needs to be widened. But the decision was made at the time, that's the width, and so each incremental development won't have to add to that width.
Okay. Other questions and/or comments? All right, so at this point, then what I'm asking for is a motion for approval as written on item C.
So moved.
So moved by Tom, seconded by Harry. It is open for more further public comment at this point. All right, seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving item C, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the motion passes 3-2.
I'd like to register a nay vote just to
Yes, I just
emphasize
said,
my points
yeah.
earlier.
And Larry, you're a nay vote? An aye, so that moves and approved 4-1. All right, item D, first reading and public hearing of ordinances for the following cases for property being 37.98 acres located at the southeast corner of Country Club Road and South Ratliff Road. 1 CP 22-04, a request for approval of an amendment to the comprehensive plan changing the future land use from rural to neighborhood and commercial, and 2 Z22-10, a request for approval to zone property to the single-family residential and general commercial zoning districts. John, you're on.
Thank you. This is the same property as you'll see from the map here. It is just the phase one, so when we looked at that larger area that includes all of this down here, we're not considering that today, just the phase one portion of this. This is changing the comprehensive plan as well as rezoning the properties. And so in terms of the comprehensive plan, it's currently all designated as rural. It would change this to neighborhood, and then the small piece up here, it would change to commercial. And then in terms of the zoning request, similarly, it would change this part of the property to RS1, which allows for single-family homes. And then that property, they've requested CG, and I'll note that staff recommended and the Planning Commission recommended a lower intensity district of neighborhood commercial.
Neighborhood commercial versus CG would be, explain what could happen.
Basically, for some of the higher intensity uses like storage warehouses, for example, which I think is one of the things they're considering, it would require a separate conditional use approval in the future rather than just being allowed. And there's some auto-oriented auto sales, car wash kinds of uses that would be allowed in CG, but would require a separate conditional use in the neighborhood commercial. That's the primary reason staff recommended.
Neighborhood commercial, a good example of something that would be built would be what?
It could be a convenience store. It could be just any small scale on a property that size. It couldn't be obviously it couldn't be a Walmart or anything like that because it's a small property, but likely something like a small retail or convenience store, something of that nature. As I mentioned, it could allow a storage mini storage warehousing, but that would require a separate approval by the Planning Commission, and they could place some conditions on it. Oftentimes, they'll, near a neighborhood, they'll place some extra conditions like screening or some landscaping to make it a little bit nicer when it's set right in the middle of, this commercial will be completely surrounded by homes. And so that's kind of the concern, is what could happen that right in the middle of a neighborhood. We did send out notices. As was mentioned earlier, we are not required by our ordinance or state law to send notices outside the city limits, but you can see we did. Those folks did become aware of it, even though we didn't send out notices. So in that respect, I think back to the issue of notice, we often find that in controversial items, neighbors become aware of it whether or not we send out notices. Anyway, that's one of the reasons we put signs out on the property as well, notifying through a sign that something is happening and proposed on a property. Just a couple of pictures. You can see there is a picture of Ratliff Road. It is fairly narrow currently. I won't read through all of this. It's in your background information, but it's basically the rationale for supporting the change to both the comprehensive plan and the zoning. Again, as we mentioned earlier, we do have a need for housing. We have a need for the community to grow, and this is an area we've seen a desire for growth. And so annexing this property and zoning it for single-family homes, we think is the right thing in this area. As I mentioned, staff does recommend approval, as did the Planning Commission. We did recommend denial of the zoning, as I mentioned, to general commercial, and instead that the plan would go to neighborhood center and the zoning would go to neighborhood commercial instead. That was considered by the Planning Commission, and they recommended approval of that staff recommendation by a 4-2 vote.
So you're saying they recommended it going to neighborhood?
Instead of general commercial, that's correct. We may have, in case that question comes up, this is, I know it's hard to read, but this is the differences between the general commercial and neighborhood commercial district and some of the uses that are and aren't allowed. And so, as I mentioned, some of these conditional uses, self-service storage, short-term rental vehicle, car wash, waste-related uses. There are some of the kinds of things that would be allowed in general commercial, but not in the neighborhood commercial district.
Yes, Tom?
John, did they come and say why they wanted CG instead of CN?
I defer to, they're here, so I would defer to them to answer that question.
Can you live with it at CN?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any questions for John? Then would be asking for a motion to approve item D, items 1 and 2. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Tom.
Can we hang on for a second? The way that the agenda's worded, wouldn't they need to change D1 to specify neighborhood and neighborhood commercial? Based on...
They could. The way we typically view it is the recommendation from the Planning Commission is the formal recommendation that comes to them. It's worded the way it is on the agenda because that was the original request.
But Councilmember Thompson just asked if they could live with it if it was neighborhood commercial.
And they
correct?
did. That's in the.
Okay.
It said
That's how it's
neighborhood
written up,
and
correct?
commercial.
Yeah, I think to be clear, maybe if you restate the motion as recommending approval as recommended by the Planning Commission. Yeah.
Public comment?
I greatly appreciate this opportunity. I'm Robert Wicks at 6925 South Ratliff Road. I take exception to what the gentleman said in the regard that he was able to talk with the person most closely involved, and he was a part of the sale and the different items happened to allow him to procure that property. But he could have walked 100 feet. Might not be required by law, might not be required by ordinance, but it sure would be neighborly. And this map doesn't show it, but he is on Ratliff Road by Ratliff Road namesake only, West Ratliff Road, which is a mile away from where any of this is happening. Now, I'll let my motions go. We have expressed concern about the safety and traffic of the rezoning of this area. And all the other parts were already discussed. I'm not here to talk about the plat. And I understand there's a need for housing. But when you put 52 homes in this area, and you tell me that the road was widened, I was there when the construction was done, and there's not a curb. There was this cement put along the side, and it was shortly after a citizen from Country Club Lake Estates was killed by an errant driver. Now we're going to be putting all these other homes there and not consider the safety. I'm so grateful that this map is up, because if you look at that corner and you take the bigger picture, please, there's 59 homes that are in the affected area that we've been talking about. 59 homes. Doesn't seem like much. But there are hundreds of homes that come from this west area towards Ratliff Road, up Country Club Road, and that is the only way they have to get to their place of business, recreation, or whatever it is that they're doing. Hundreds of homes down that way. There's another 40 homes in Grand Canal area and Templin Road. There's businesses. It's industrial. When you look at this and you're not considering the safety by widening that road adequately, it's incomprehensible to me. And that's where that whole idea of let's break bread together and have a communication, let's have a talk, comes to play. I'll say that part with a lot of passion, but I'm just concerned when you add a convenience store, and Lord knows we don't need another convenience store in this town, nor do we need another car wash. What we need is diverse business. But if you put that there, that brings even more traffic to this area. And I ask you to put yourselves in our shoes. There's people that have lived in that area for over 40 years. They've invested. We've invested for 15 years, longer than I've ever lived in my life. And I simply ask that you take those kinds of things into consideration. The traffic and safety that this move, this rezoning creates. Maybe there's a need for new homes, more homes, absolutely. But a grand total of 120 homes in a 3/10 of a mile stretch? Thank you.
Further public comment?
Casey Pointer again. Just here if you guys have any other questions. Real quick, I would like, we did look at this. We went down every avenue the city recommended, and that's all we knew how to do, to be honest. We didn't walk the 100 yards. I guess we should have done that. But I'm not a professional developer. I'm an oilfield guy, to be honest. We have a company here in town, Dorado Construction Group, and we go out and build stuff everywhere. This was a way for us to get through the pandemic, and it started then, and I've been working on it a year and a half, so it started in the middle of that. It's been a long road to hoe. But yes, we can live with the CN, the commercial neighborhood. We didn't really fight that. We wanted commercial general commercial just for flexibility and trying to sell the lot. Any questions, please? I'm here.
No questions. Thank you. All right, there has been a motion and a second to approve item D 1 and 2. We will take a vote, voice vote. So all in favor, Larry? Karen?
Nay, for the same reason stated before.
Thank you. Harry?
Yay.
Tom?
Aye.
And aye. So motion passes 4-1. We'll move on to item E. I'm going to ask for a motion to table this to the June 21st meeting. And so may I have a motion for that?
So moved.
So moved by Harry, second by Karen. I don't know that we have to take public comment on this.
I don't think anyone would be here to
Yeah.
speak on it.
All right. So with that, we'll take a vote to approve moving this item E to the June 21st meeting. All say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. There will be no closed session, so we will move to item A, B, consider approving the various board nominations. Fort Concho Museum Board, Sarah Clemens, SMD 5, to a first term ending January 2024. Keep San Angelo Beautiful Board, Ellen Groth, SMD 6, to a first term ending September 2023. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, DJ Wilde, SMD 5, to a first term ending December 2023. And the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Lyndon Roberts Galindo, SMD 5, to a first term ending January 2024. May I have a motion for approval of all that have just been read on item 8B?
So moved.
Moved by Tom. Second by Harry. Public comment on any of these nominations? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. We will now have a...
Mayor, I think the last two votes have been 5-0. I don't think anyone dissented
Oh, I said
to
5. I'm sorry,
tabling
5-0. Yeah, sorry.
item or the
And the
board.
same thing on item E, right? I said 4-0?
Yes, ma'am, but I
Should be
don't believe-
5-0.
yes.
Correct that. Thank you. All right, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
So moved, a second. Second by Karen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 10:31 a.m.